So the other day I got an email from a woman who was very upset about a video I had done talking about how men define intimacy through physical contact. She wrote, "Men don't need sex, they just want it. And nobody has ever died from being denied sex." You know what? On the surface, at least technically, she's right. Nobody keels over dead the second they hear, "Not tonight, honey, I've got a headache." But let me tell you what really happens to a human being who's actively being denied sex, being denied intimacy over and over. It isn't just frustrating, it's soul-crushing. Especially so for men. Some equate it to torture. And by the way, it is also considered a form of domestic violence, though usually only if it's the man doing it. If it's the woman who is actively denying sex and intimacy, well, she's just choosing to do what's best for her. The thing that many don't understand is that it doesn't just stay in the bedroom. It bleeds into every corner of a man's life. It affects his confidence, his physical health, his marriage, and his commitment to it. And perhaps most of all, it affects his mental and emotional state. And today I'm going to walk through what happens when a man is consistently denied intimacy. Not once or twice, but as a long-term pattern. And we're going to start from the lighter consequences and work our way down to the absolute darkest outcomes. Oh, and spoiler alert, by the end of this list, it should be pretty damn clear that while men may not drop dead from the lack of intimacy, plenty of them will die inside. All right, let's get into it. First and foremost, what you'll hear from most guys who've been denied intimacy for any length of time is that they feel isolated and alone. Women love to talk about the so-called male loneliness epidemic, and it does actually exist, but not in the way they think. It's not the single guys who are lonely, it's the married guys. You see, it exists primarily within marriages, especially the roughly 1/3 of them that are sexless, or where it's so infrequent, they might as well be. A man can be married, sharing a bed every night, but yet still feel like he's completely alone. They'll often put it like they have a roommate, not a partner, not a wife. Think about it. He's lying next to the woman he loves, the one person he should feel closest to in the world. And yet, there's a wall between them. A wall built brick by brick with every no, every not tonight, every I have a headache or I'm too tired. Every possible excuse that women come up with that you can imagine. It's emotional starvation. And unlike food or water, there's no obvious sign he's withering away. But inside, he feels it every single day. And unlike the single guys who can go find someone who is, shall we say, a bit more willing, married guys have no off-ramp. If they cheat, they're screwed in court. If they leave, they're screwed in court. If they stay, well, they may not be screwed in court, but they're screwed in life. There is no good choice, no good option. They're all bad. And it's why so many men feel trapped with nowhere to turn. All right, next up is the hit to self-esteem and confidence. When a man gets constantly rejected, it starts eating at his self-worth. And every man knows this. After enough rejections, he starts asking himself, am I not attractive? Did I do something wrong? Am I even desirable anymore? And ladies, those questions should be familiar to you because you're the ones who say the very same things, yet you never allow for the men to have the same thoughts or feelings. And here's the kicker. He can be crushing it everywhere else. He could be killing it at work, hitting his fitness goals, being a great dad. But when the one person who's supposed to want him doesn't, all of those achievements feel hollow. Society tells men that confidence comes from achievement. Wrong. A man's deepest confidence comes from knowing that his woman, the woman he loves and desires him as well. And when you strip that away, the rest of his accomplishments start to feel like nothing more than trophies that no one wants to look at. Next comes the shame and guilt. And because men are men, they don't just feel rejected, they feel guilty for even wanting intimacy. Most of the time, they're made to feel guilty for wanting it. We all know that question that women just love to toss out if a man brings up the topic of sex or intimacy. Good God, is that all you think about? Those words cut through a man better than any sharp blade. They're the ultimate dismissal of his thoughts, his feelings, his very being. The goal, of course, is to shut him up and to make him feel guilty for wanting it in the first place. And that is often where the real shame creeps in. He starts to think, maybe I am asking for too much. Maybe I am being selfish. Maybe I'm just a pervert because I want to be intimate with my wife. And society fuels this as well. The culture constantly says to men, you only want one thing. You're all pigs. You're sex obsessed. And that leads to the man feeling even more ashamed for desiring his own wife, for wanting her, for wanting to be with her. Think about how insane that is. You take vows, you promise to love one another and to be intimate. And suddenly, he's made to feel like a creep for wanting the very thing that marriage is supposed to include. And that's when the real rot starts to set in, with the loss of trust and respect. For men, it's about knowing that their partner sees them, values them, cares about them, and yes, desires them. When that disappears, when it becomes some sort of a game or is used as a reward and then not given, a game so many wives like to play, like if you do this, I'll be more willing later, and then she's asleep faster than you know what. The man ends up stops trusting her, stops trusting that she's really on his team. And he starts doubting. If she doesn't even want me, does she even love me? Does she even respect me? And I'd argue the answer to both those questions is no. No, she doesn't. Because how can you love someone, claim to care about them, while at the same time denying them the very thing they crave? The thing that in theory you and only you can give them. When that happens, respect goes out the window. And once respect is gone for a man, the marriage is basically a hollow shell. Sure, you got bills, maybe kids, maybe even a mortgage, but that core of trust is cracked. You're no longer husband and wife. You're roommates and nothing more. Once respect is gone, it leads to things like resentment and irritability. And now we're really entering the danger zone. The one where men feel constantly rejected. Resentment builds. He feels taken for granted. He starts thinking, I work hard, I provide, I protect, and I show up. I do all the things that are expected of me, and this is what I get? So what happens? He gets irritable. He snaps at the small things. He gets short with her, with the kids, even maybe with people at work. And of course, he's then blamed for all of it. Here's the cruel irony. Women will notice that irritability and then weaponize it even further. They'll use it as another excuse. See, I don't want to be intimate with you because you're always grumpy. And inside, they're laughing as they do it because they now feel in control, strong, and in charge. What they won't feel is any guilt whatsoever, any caring, any consideration for the hurt that they've put on the man they either claim to love or once did. It becomes a vicious cycle. Resentment builds, intimacy disappears, resentment gets even worse. And then it just keeps growing and growing, which then, more often than not, leads to mental health struggles. This is where it cranks up to another notch. At this stage, it's not uncommon for men to slide into depression and anxiety. He's not just cranky, he's starting to lose hope. He's questioning his worth, his marriage, even his future. Some guys, many in fact, go numb. Some spiral into full-blown depression. Some, unfortunately, take the ultimate dark route out. If you've ever seen a man who doesn't laugh the same anymore, whose spark is gone, who's lost the will to live, a lot more times than anyone is willing to admit, there's a story of rejection behind it. And it leads to other issues, physical ones. Many people don't realize the effects it has on men physically when they are actively denied intimacy. And guess what? It isn't just a mental game. Denying intimacy actually wrecks a man's physical health too. Women love to say that married men live longer, happier lives than unmarried ones. Well, that may be true for some, but for the ones in a dead bedroom marriage, it's anything but. Sex lowers stress, boosts immunity, improves sleep, literally improves heart health. Some studies are reporting that less ejaculation, aka less sex, may increase the risk of getting prostate cancer for men. Now, the jury may still be out on that, but there is evidence of a link. To sum it all up, when men are denied sex, their health declines, blood pressure rises, sleep quality tanks, stress hormones go through the roof. So sure, it is fair to say, as the woman who wrote me said, that nobody dies immediately from lack of sex. But the science is clear. Men deprived of intimacy are at a higher risk for actual physical disease than those that aren't. So it's not cut and dried, not by a long shot. And now we're going to talk about another effect, one that many men aren't even aware of. The next step, the next evolution, if you will, I like to call learned helplessness. It's an effect that many men aren't aware of, and let me tell you, this one's brutal, because in the end, it kills hope. After enough rejection, men will simply stop trying. They'll stop initiating. They'll stop reaching for their wife at night, because they already know what her answer is going to be. It's like teaching a dog not to beg at the table. If you ignore him enough times, he will just give up. Except here, it's not a dog, it's a human being. It's a husband giving up on his marriage, giving up on his wife. And here's the twisted part. This is where the wives come in. They love to start complaining and blaming him. Oh, he never tries anymore. He's so distant. He just doesn't want it. Yeah, because he's been trained into helplessness. Been denied so many times, he's lost the ability to even want it with her. At this point, he's broken. The relationship is broken. And sadly, more often than not, irretrievably so. Which then extends further into emotional withdrawal and disassociation. So men start withdrawing. They start disassociating from their marriage. And now we're really in the danger zone. The man starts building walls. He withdraws emotionally, stops sharing his feelings, stops opening up. As I said earlier, he becomes numb. He becomes a zombie just moving from task to task throughout his day. On the outside, he's quiet. On the inside, he's completely checked out. Sure, he's living in the same house, but he's not really there. And this, my friends, is when the marriage is basically over. She's got a husband who's a ghost. He's got a wife he doesn't trust. Intimacy is gone, and so is the emotional connection. And often it's not just with his wife, but with anyone. So debilitating is it for some men to be rejected time and again that often they lose the ability to feel anything for anyone. Then they become nothing more than a hollow shell, which sadly in many cases leads to them feeling anger, self-hate, and ultimately substance abuse. We've now reached the absolute darkest stage, the point where men feel rejected long enough that many will try to cope in destructive ways. They'll drink, they'll turn to drugs, they'll bury themselves in porn. Some will even cheat, not because they wanted to, but because they so desperately need someone to make them feel wanted. Look, I'm not saying that's right, and I'm certainly not justifying cheating. But that doesn't mean we can't have a conversation or an understanding of why it may make men cheat. Others will explode into rage, outbursts, and resort to self-destruction. And yeah, this is where the real tragedy happens. Because it's no longer just about a man feeling frustrated. It's about broken marriages, broken families, and in the worst cases, men losing themselves completely in the process. And rarely, if ever, do those men get even the slightest bit of understanding. No, more often than not, they get ridiculed, called weak, unmanly, or worse. They will get blamed for all of it without getting an ounce of caring, compassion, or understanding. So going back to that woman's email where she said nobody ever died from being denied sex. As I've illustrated, that may be true in part. It may not be instant, but here's the truth. Being denied intimacy does kill men, kills them in pieces, kills their confidence, kills their trust, kills their health, kills their spirit. It beats them down until there's barely a man left. So no, it's not just sex. It's not just that's all you think about. It's not even really about want. It's about survival. And denying that reality is exactly why so many marriages are dead. Dead long before the divorce papers are even filed. All right, as always, if you got value from this conversation, do me a favor, hit that like button and drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the topic. And share this with someone else who needs to hear it. Yes, it helps the channel grow, which in turn helps me to raise awareness on the issues that men and boys face, and hopefully sparks the real conversations and policy changes that we need to address them. It only takes a minute of your time and doesn't take a penny out of your pocket, yet it can quite literally help change the world. All right, till next time, stay strong, take care of yourself, and never stop speaking up, because men need to be heard.